History tells us that Hitler committed suicide in 1945. Despite there being no body, a British intelligence report based on German eyewitness statements confirmed his death. Then, in 1968, at the height of the Cold War, the Soviet Union made an announcement that seemed to confirm the report once and for all. They admitted they had recovered the charred remains of Hitler and Eva Braun back in 1945. In 2009, the story was blown wide open again when an American pathologist ran DNA tests on a piece of the skull fragment held by the Russians.
The Russians say the skull and the jaw fragments that they own are Adolf Hitler's. And it's DNA tested, but they're not. They are that of a woman in her 40s.
The sensational discovery about the skull cast doubt that any of the remains the Russians claimed to have were Hitler's. Since then, the Russians have refused to allow anyone else access to the recovered remains.
There are no forensics, and none of it fits. We've been sold a dummy.
So why do people still believe that Hitler died in his bunker? To answer that, Gerard Williams thinks we have to go back to the British intelligence report written in 1945 by Major Trevor Roper, a professor of medieval history who'd spent the war decoding German messages.
Why would anybody put a professor of medieval history who has no experience in detective work, no experience in interrogation, to write the final report on the death of a criminal? No head of Scotland Yard, no senior detective, no senior military policeman, no man from the FBI, no forensics professor, a medieval historian.
Without a body, Roper's investigation was going to be difficult.
If you don't have a corpse, what do? So you have to interview the people, interrogate the people who were around Hitler.
And that's exactly what Roper said he did, but Gerard Williams doesn't believe him.
What's interesting for me is that when you read the accounts of the people who Trevor Roper said he interviewed, they say that he either never met them or they laughed every time they read what he'd repeated that they had said.
It turns out that Roper's report was actually based on statements given to Soviet interrogators, statements the witnesses later retracted.
We know that German prisoners, high-ranking prisoners who had been in the bunker, most likely lied to the Soviets when they were interrogated.
There are really serious problems with the official history. It's supported by eyewitnesses who actually never see anybody get shot, never see the Fuhrer and Eva go into his private quarters in the bunker. They see bodies coming out, but nobody ever sees Hitler and Eva dead.
So, if the conspiracy theorists are right, and they did escape the bunker, what happened to them?
I'm pretty convinced that two people probably did die in the bunker at the end of April, beginning of May 1945, but they weren't Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun. Hitler and Eva are substituted in the dying days of the bunker in Berlin. Two double replaced them, and it was those who were murdered and their bodies disposed of later.